Someone wants to know, how can I reduce taxes by splitting income with my spouse or kids through the business?
Spouse is usually not going to be effective because you're assuming you're filing jointly because you're still together. Kids can be helpful, and you put kids on the payroll, and like we talked about earlier, with them being exempt from Social Security tax and payroll tax, or Social Security, Medicare, unemployment, and income tax. That can be useful. But yeah, there are some situations where you might not be quite together with the spouse, and that can be useful, especially if there's children involved and there's tax credits for kids. So that can be a little bit of finagling, but that's really depends on the situation. I would say 90% of the time, paying your spouse is not going to be any different than paying you. In fact, it can be worse because, especially if you have a high W-2 that we're talking about here, the key element is the Social Security cap. So this year, I think it's 169,000 is the cap. That might be last year's number. I'd have to check. But once you hit that cap, you'll continue to pay Medicare tax, but your Social Security stops. We've had cases in the past where the husband and wife own a company, they paid themselves equally, and they didn't do the same things though. They decided just to pay themselves equally, and they both paid themselves like grand or whatever the number was. So the total was 300, but they paid Social Security on the full 300 because they did not take into account the fact that they were about to hit the cap one way or the other, and they could have sculpted their income a little bit better in order to pay less Social Security tax. So those kind of things can happen where you should alter the ratios of things. But paying a spouse where there wasn't pay before usually is not going to work out.
So don't go that route, right? The
Usually.
spouse route. Okay.
10%
Understood.
of the time that can work.
Understood. Understood. We have a recording keeping and reporting question, Neil.
Okay.